Richard Brown.
Hi, Susie or man.
It's Bronze and Modern Gods. Do you know this is our third Halloween episode?
Wow. 3 years, man.
My name is Susie Orman.
And I'm Budget Nick Fury.
What is this? Oh, you're supposed to be Nick Fury. Whose costume is worse, yours or mine?
Oh, it's easily mine.
I look more like our mutual friend Steve Thompson than I do Susie Orman.
The horrible thing about this particular costume is not only is it kind of piss poor, but I can't see a thing.
I can see because you're looking up instead of at me.
No, I know it's terrible. I'm going to have to take it off to do the show, but
I don't know. I kind of dig having hair again. It's like a whole new world for me. But sorry,
it does suit you.
Doing my voice. Hey, follow us at Facebook and Instagram at Bronze and Modern Gods Girlfriend. Give us a like, subscribe. All right, I'm not going to do that voice all this time, I promise you. Hey, happy Halloween, everybody. It is a viewer mail. And, take that thing off, please. Before we get started, you know what time it is? We have a new sponsor on the show, Richard. Now, before we get into this, longtime viewers of the show know how Richard signs off every week. How do you go, Richard? What do you say?
Everybody stay safe.
Well, this is right in line with that advice, Richard. You guys are aware identity theft is the fastest growing crime in America. There's a new victim every 14 seconds. Let's count together. Ready?
And that's why we're excited to have partnered with today's sponsor, Aura. I am a huge proponent of personal security and personal safety. And Aura supports that. It's a new app that combines the identity theft protection, fraud monitoring, a VPN, which everyone should be using, password management, which everyone should be using, and an antivirus software all in one.
Now, true story. Swear to God. I got an email yesterday announcing a settlement from a large credit monitoring company because of a security leak. I'm eligible for a settlement. And that's just one example of what can happen out there.
Right.
One look at my account on Aura, and I can see how many times Aura found my passwords or personal identification on the dark web. Aura also gives you near real-time alerts on suspicious credit inquiries, like if someone's trying to open a credit card or a loan in your name. Scary stuff that you can get protected from.
It is. And Aura's VPN allows you to stay anonymous online by keeping your browser history and personal information safe and encrypted. Everyone should be using a VPN to protect yourself from all of the tracking information that comes from major browsers and services. It's an important thing to have.
And you could protect yourself from identity theft at aura.com/bronze. Again, that's our code, or that's not our code. That's the URL to use. Aura.com/bronze. We have a link in the show notes as well. If you sign up for Aura with our link, aura.com/bronze, you'll not only get a 2-week free trial, you'll also be supporting the show. And I'm so glad I finally get to say this for real after making it a running joke for so long.
Yeah, so head on over to aura.com/bronze to try Aura for 14 days for free and protect yourself and stay safe.
See, it pays off. Richard, Halloween, spooky, monsters, men in pearls. Let's get started with our hot book of the week. Richard, what is it?
Our hot book this week is Man Thing #1 from 1974.
Approved.
It's kind of surprising how strong sales are for this, primarily driven by the cameo in Werewolf by Night. I haven't seen it yet.
I haven't either. I have to admit, I haven't seen it.
Yeah. But also, all the Bronze Age horror, Marvel horror books in general are spiking.
Let's not forget also the second appearance of Howard the Duck after Fear number 19. The 90-day average for a CGC 9.6 for this book is $984.
Wow.
Yeah, especially when you consider last year's GPA for a 9.6 was $473. That's almost a double jump. It is a double jump, isn't it? My math is off. The last sale, though, let's be honest, the last sale for a 9.6 was $900 this month, so that's a little down. This is, Richard, I can see why this book is heading towards $1,000. It's one of those Bronze Age titles that got zero love for decades and decades. Nobody was super hot on Man-Thing, so higher grade copies are tough for sure. I look like a bad glam metal rock star from like 1990, but like 1994, after like grunge hit and they had to like pivot and change,
I'm sorry. Yeah. You got a little bit of Axl Rose going there,
but
maybe a little bit of Nirvana going there.
What do you think of Man-Thing #1?
I love all of the classic Marvel horror. I grew up as you did in the 70s when for Saturday morning after the cartoons, they played back a variety of horror movies. Frankenstein, Wolfman, Dracula, all the schlocky ones too, the ones with Boris Karloff. And that was just an ingrained part of my childhood. So these books to me are a great reminder of that whole tradition of horror being just a part of what you watched every single week.
And not only that, a great Steve Gerber scripts in this whole series, Man-Thing, the first series from 1974. Absolutely worth getting all 22 issues of. Just some classic Bronze Age comics right there.
Right, and I see these books, holding their value. I think their horror in general is one of those genres that always holds its value, and I think it's a good buy to buy this book if you come across it.
Before we move on, I forgot to mention at the top of the show. It's a good time to do it because we're going to be doing viewer mail. But I got a DM today from our friend Zach Duncan, friend of the show, Zach, who's done many viewer mails with us before, and he just randomly said, "I thought I was going to pay off all of my debt with a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles #1 first print that I found. I was only able to get a bit more than half of it gone because life got to me. But with that last sale that I had, I just knocked the rest of my debt out yesterday.
Congratulations.
Can't wait to see the credit score bump up later in the week. This probably wouldn't have been a priority for me without you and Richard talking about it. #Susie Orman."
Wow. Thank you so much. That really makes us feel impactful, and the things that we say, people are actually listening to it. And you will see a credit bump. I saw over a 35-point bump in my score when I paid off my debt. And I was getting a lot of offers for credit. Now it's just a deluge. It's funny how when you don't have credit, nobody wants to give it to you. But when you do have, everybody wants to give you more.
Zach, let me go back into my Susie Orman here. Zach, tell me, how do you feel now? Do you feel empowered? Do you feel great that the debt is gone? You should. We're proud of you, Zach. I'm David Spade. That's why I'm David Spade.
Yeah, you do kind of look like a porn version of David Spade. Yeah.
Hey, the pearls. I had two choices with this. I could have gone full shaving, makeup, lipstick, the whole Megillah, or be lazy like this with the cat's eye lenses that she sometimes.
Or you also look like one of the Gibb brothers.
Hey, I'm Barry. I hope it's Barry, because Barry was the man. I look like David Spade. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. All right. What time is it now? It is time for our main topic. Viewer mail. The show's completely off the rails.
Oh, it's scary. Scary show.
I know. Why don't you start us off, Richard? What's our first piece of viewer mail?
My first piece is from Commotion with an exclamation point. I love that. And this is talking about our previous show when and our guest specifically mentioned Stan. Stan used to say that sometimes he'd only give Jack or Steve a single line like, "Have Dr. Doom be the villain in this issue." He'd then get the 22 pages back, fully plotted and illustrated with margin notes, at which point Stan would then write the story, right being in quotes.
That's been corroborated by both artists as well. So, I don't think it's a surprise to, well, maybe some of the newer collectors that don't realize that Stan didn't sit in an office and type everything out and create all these things in a vacuum. But, obviously you guys know how big, I'm still looking at my hair. Sorry to all the podcast listeners that aren't seeing this on YouTube. I apologize. Stan, I think you guys know I'm a huge Jack Kirby fan, so you might think where I lay on this, and you're probably right, but Stan was an important part of it. The personality, the bullpen bulletins, the letters pages. Marvel as a brand would not have happened with just Jack Kirby, or with just Steve Ditko. Jack had his own company, Mainline, and it didn't take off, because he didn't have that zing. So yeah.
Not only that, Stan, I think played the foil to the creatives for both Steve and for Jack. Creatives on their own, I think, lack structure, and I think Stan brought a continuity and to their talent that manifested it in, real storylines that came out, consistent storylines. I can't say that Stan sat down and wrote every single one, but he had impact in each issue, I'm sure, and that gives him an important role in that whole process of early Marvel. I'm sure as Marvel as a company grew, his direct role with interfacing with the artists kind of fell back. But those early days in 1962, I totally see him being an integral part of the team.
He was a disruptor in the industry. I mean, even DC Comics, #1 by a long shot at the time, they had to sit up and take notice eventually. I also think he kind of paved the way in terms of change, because in those first 36, 38 issues of Amazing Spider-Man, we see Peter Parker grow, graduate high school, lose the glasses, get a girlfriend. I mean, and then because who knows how long it was going to last back then. So it was easy to make the characters grow and change. But then when the realization came in, hey, these characters aren't going anywhere, they're going to be here for years, then it became the illusion of change for a lot of times, which was another pioneering thing that Stan can get credit for sure. Speaking of creatives and also figureheads and people leading the way for a company, lots of reaction to my shaming everyone for not watching the Paul Levitz interview. First of all, thank you everybody for going back to watch it. The view counts jumped up considerably. So say what you want about thumbnails and shaming. It worked. I'm glad a lot of you went back and watched the interview with Paul Levitz. But I have
to say that thumbnail is one of my favorite thumbnails that you've come up with.
Wait till you see tomorrow's with Susie Orman. No, I'm not going to do that, I don't think. But it did lead to a comment from our good friend Mint Hunter, James at Mint Hunter Comics. If you have not checked out Mint Hunter Comics on YouTube, you obviously should be subscribed to that as well.
Yep,
he commiserated with me. I got you. I did an interview with Jim Starlin, and it was easily my worst performing video, not only for 2022, but maybe over 2021 as well. Such a shame. So you guys have a new assignment. Go to Mint Hunter Comics on YouTube and watch the Jim Starlin interview. It's very good. Very well done. But yeah, James, you're pretty good with the thumbnails. Maybe you should have one where, you're wearing the Thanos glove and all your viewers are disappearing, or I don't know. I'm riffing, I'm spitballing. Look, I'm wearing a David Spade wig right now, trying to be Susie. By the way, this wig that I got at Spirit Halloween, of course, this is called the Karen.
Oh, well, that's appropriate. Although it does look kind of like one of the Gibb brothers or Michael McDowell, one of the
Barry Gibb, David Spade, Susie Orman, a Karen, or maybe, oh gosh, I just blanked out. Oh, the Jennifer Aniston or the Rachel. Enough about this wig. What is your next piece of viewer mail?
My next piece is from our bud, Kmart Comics, a longtime friend of the show. He actually sent me an IG message about a story that he was a part of, and I just wanted to share it. Kmart says, while at the Cincinnati Comic Expo this weekend, I had 2 copies of Tales to Suspense number 57, which is a reprint Marvel did last month on display, showing the difference between a standard bag and board and in the clear bag and boards. They sell a clear backing board, which is actually really cool. I have a number of them that I use for my high-end books. An elderly gentleman picked up one of the copies and asked how much. I told the gentleman it wasn't really for sale. It was there to demonstrate the difference between the bags. He proceeded to tell me that his wife owns the original art for the issue and would love to see how it looked once printed. Wow. So needless to say, a lengthy conversation ensued with the gentleman and his wife, where I produced some of the original art from the NOM I brought to the show for Larry Hama. So I gave them the book and asked if they could please send me pictures of the art because Hawkeye was one of my favorite characters growing up. That's Tales of Suspense 57 is the first appearance of Hawkeye. The next morning I woke up to an email filled with images of Tales of Suspense 57. I thought you and John would like to see some of this. And so he included a couple of shots of the original art that he received. I think that's so cool, connecting with someone who owns the original art just by happenstance, attending a show. That's such a great story.
Who's his wife? How did she get this art? Where did this Don Heck art that's worth tens and tens of thousands of dollars come from?
Yeah, I don't know.
Kmart, I have questions.
If you have contact with these people, I would love to hear the whole story. This is just a taste that just makes us want more.
Kmart, put this person in touch with Heritage Auctions or something. Help them make get a commission. Work it. Wow, interesting. And look at the scans. I mean, beautiful stuff. My next piece of viewer mail is also coming from our interview with DC Comics president and publisher for years and years, Paul Levitz, where he mentioned that the lowest selling title ever in DC Comics history on the newsstand was a book called Gem, Son of Saturn from the 80s, where it had a 91% return rate. Now, I'm not sure if that was, by the end of the series, it was returning, because I'm sure issue 1 sold through a little better than that. But Scott Gustafson, let's say that. Sorry, Scott. So I'm hearing you say that Gem, Son of Saturn #1 is an untapped gold mine due to a low print run. The newsstand version, maybe, I would say probably the last issue of Gem, Son of Saturn, the newsstand edition, has very few copies floating around, I would say. Let's go on the high end of things. DC in the mid-'80s, the high end, 100,000 copies went to newsstands, and 91% of those got returned. So there's only 9,000 copies that made it into collectors' hands. For a book from the mid-'80s, that is really scarce. Now, does anyone give a crap about Gem, Son of Saturn? No. Raise your hands.
Scarcity does not imply value, unfortunately.
I will tell you, when I go through corner boxes and back issue bins at stores now, I am going to be looking through the J's to see if I can find some newsstand editions of Gem, Son of Saturn. Mm-hmm. It just takes one option.
That's true. That's all it takes. This takes Kevin Feige to sneeze.
It's not Kevin Feige. That's Marvel. This is DC.
I'm sorry. That ties into another one here that
go for it.
I'll come up here. And this is from P. Bales, one of our viewers. I didn't watch the interview because I can count the number of DC comics I've purchased on the fingers of my 2 hands. But since you called it out, I'm going to watch it.
Good.
I think that's a good, my faux pas in the previous We are in a Marvel-driven industry right now because of the MCU. I just automatically think Marvel when I think of things by default, and I think that that's cyclical, and I think there's a lot of low-hanging fruit in the DC catalog that people can take advantage of. But for now, for the next 5 years, I really see it being a Marvel-driven industry because of the MCU and because of Disney Plus doing all the shows and Star Wars, and there's just such a strong effort of Marvel dominating this particular space. I don't see that changing, but it will change, just as everything else does. So if you can find an opportunity to buy DC books at a reasonable price, I would still buy them.
P. Bales, I have to ask you, how long have you been collecting comics? Because if you have never bought or read The Dark Knight Returns or Watchmen or Alan Moore's Swamp Thing or Grant Morrison's Doom Patrol or Legion of Superheroes by either Paul Levitz or Jim Shooter, you're missing out. They're really good comics. Now, if you are a super investor, you're like, I only buy Marvel because I'm investing and I want to sell. This is a good opportunity for you too. DC's are really affordable right now. And as we can see from all the movie studio announcements in the past week, they're not going anywhere. There's plenty of opportunity here. We are guilty sometimes of this podcast of being a little too Marvel centric, but that doesn't mean we have disdain or just have no time for independence or DC. It just so happens that, a lot of the market is driven by this. And so when something appropriate happens like Black Adam or whatever, we talk about it. So P. Bales, check out some DC stuff. You might be pleasantly surprised.
Yep, I completely agree.
My last piece of viewer mail is from J Boxer, close to one of my favorite bands from the 80s, Joe Boxers. Just got lucky. J Boxer, sorry. This wig's got me diverted. John, thank you so much for pronouncing indicia correctly. I cringe when I hear indica or indicia or any other train wreck version other than indicia. How does the comic community pronounce Jurjevic correctly and then constantly bastardize indicia? Thank you. Thank you.
That's a good point.
Thank you, Jay. I can tell you a story. I was in third grade and we had to do an oral presentation to the class about something we were passionate about. And I did my oral presentation in Mrs. Porter's third grade class in Erie Elementary School in Elyria, Ohio, on comic book collecting and why I loved comic book collecting. And I gave instructions. I was even teaching people back then. If you had a coverless comic, how can you tell what issue number it is? And I said during my oral presentation, this part at the bottom of the first page is called the indicia. And Mrs. Porter, God bless her, corrected my pronunciation and said it's actually pronounced indicia. And I never forgot it. So thank you, Mrs. Porter.
Mm-hmm. How impactful teachers could be to students.
She's also the one that kept me after class because I used the word omnipotent in a written paper, and she wanted to know who helped me write it, and I told her I learned the word omnipotent from Thor comics.
If she could only see you now.
I know, in my David Spade, Susie Orman wig. But that was more than 25 years ago, Richard.
Much more.
Much more. I won't say how many years ago, but it is time for the 25-year rule.
Scary 25-year rule.
The scary one. Let me fix my wig here. 25-year rule. Going back to 1997 as we do for the 25-year rule. Guess what? We talked about Man-Thing number 1 from 1974. 25-year rule today is about Man-Thing number 1 from 1997. This was the first issue for Man-Thing's third attempt at an ongoing series, this time by the creative team of J.M. DeMatteis. I believe that's how you pronounce his name. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong. And Liam Sharp. Liam Sharp, beautiful art. Very Simon Bisley-esque, very detailed, gorgeous stuff. Issue 2 of this series even has a variant cover by the classic Man-Thing artist Mike Plug, which is really cool looking as well. Now, this Man-Thing series was part of a new mini launch of a Strange Tales branded line of new horror comics, and it also included a reboot of, you guessed it, Werewolf by Night. Both of these books limped along for about 8 issues before being combined into a new double-sized Strange Tales title. That lasted 2 whole issues. Tough time for Marvel. His books selling under 20,000 were automatically put on the chopping block, so these books did not last long. So you've got a low print run, 25 years of indifference from collectors until now. So this makes it a pretty decent buy to grab if you see it. Just put it away for a while.
Yeah, do you think these horror books from the 90s have any kind of impact like the ones from the 70s?
I think the low print runs help, and the fact that there are low census numbers and people really haven't been gobbling these up. There's one from 1998 called The Supernaturals, which was done by the guy who did Brian Pulido, who did Lady Death and Evil Ernie, and it combines all this Ghost Rider and Brother Voodoo and all these supernatural characters that I think is a very underrated book. But this is the 25-year rule, not the 26-year rule. So it's time to move on to our underrated books of the week. And here's the best transition I think we've had in a while, Richard. Best segue, because my underrated book of the week is, indeed, Strange Tales #1 from 1997. This was a relaunch of the classic Marvel horror and suspense title, as I said, this time combining both that faltering Man-Thing ongoing series from 1997 and the Werewolf by Night relaunch. The thought being, hey, maybe these two lower selling titles, if we combine them into one giant size book and up the price point a bit, it can be profitable. And besides, they had already had material done for these books, but they were being canceled, so why not use it? A whopping $4.99 price point in 1998.
Wow.
Made this one of the most expensive titles for its day. This is when books were $1.99. So,
wow.
Yeah, $2.50
It's graphic
maybe.
novel kind of price.
Yeah. So I think Strange Tales #1 from 1998 is another one of those books that, with both characters making waves on Disney Plus right now, combined with a low print run and no interest for years and years, I grab this whenever I see it. This relaunch lasted a whopping 2 issues before it got canceled. Marvel was in trouble then. 1998 was the bankruptcy years when they were coming out of bankruptcy, and they were trying anything and everything, and anything over a certain number of orders just got the chopping block immediately. There was no, let's hold on for a few issues and see if it'll catch on. Nope, you are gone.
So was this the time when they got they licensed or sold the license to Spider-Man and Fantastic Four to Sony and to Fox?
This is when, that they had those rights around this time. And it was also right after Heroes Reborn, where they had licensed everything out to the Image guys, Liefeld and Lee, to kind of revitalize the titles. And that lasted a year. And this was 2 years before Marvel Knights came in, or maybe the year before Marvel Knights came in, where they licensed titles to Joe Quesada and Jimmy Palmiotti, Daredevil, Black Panther, Inhumans. And we know how that turned out. Turned the whole ship around. Good for them. What's your underrated book?
My book is also horror themed. It is Afterlife with Archie #5 from 2013. To me, this is a truly underrated series, Archie Afterlife, or Afterlife with Archie. It's a dark and spooky tale in the Archie universe. It's not actually an alternate Archie universe. And basically the storyline is the dog in the story, whose name I cannot remember, gets run over.
Hot dog.
Thank you. And Sabrina resurrects him, and unfortunately resurrects him. He ends up being a zombie dog, and he bites Jughead, who now turns into a zombie. And then that's patient zero. And then the classic zombie story ensues. It's a really dark take because for example, Archie has to basically beat his zombie father to death to save the rest of his family, and it continues from there. I like this one for the cover. I'm a big Good Girl Art fan. #5 is indicative of kind of the more adult theme there is for this particular series.
I like good girl art too.
This is the first title that Archie sold only to the direct market. Issue number 8. Pardon?
I said, "Oh wow!"
Oh. Issue number 8 was also the start of the company's Archie horror imprint, which had a number of other titles in it as well. The comic was supposed to run for 12 issues. And issue number 10 came out in 2016, and it kind of they're trickling out the issues. And issue number 11 and number 12, although there are covers out there for them, never actually were printed. So we really don't have the end to the story. But it's if you're a fan of Archie and you want to see what Archie would be like in a horror environment, which sounds kind of strange for those 60s, 70s Archie's fans, this is a great storyline, and I am sure that it contributed to the whole Riverdale TV show and the the dark tones that show took as well. So yeah, you can buy a 9.8 copy of this book for about $125. It's not incredibly expensive. And I love the cover, and I think it's goodbye.
Kind of changed their approach too, when they have all sorts of spinoffs now, like Vampironica, things like that, where they continued this kind of horror thing. Sabrina's Chilling Tales of Sorcery came back, so this is where it all began. This was the birth of the undead.
Oh, you're so scary, John.
I know, especially with this outfit on. Hey, everyone. Thanks for watching. Make sure you follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Bronze and Modern Gods. And also, if you like this video, all right, hit like, hit subscribe. I'm Spade now. I went from Susie Orman to Spade. Listen, shut. No, that's Dennis Miller. Hey, thanks, everybody. We'll catch you next time.
Thanks, everybody. Everyone, stay safe.